I'm not going to be undervalued. I don't know if it was just for fun or if it was because my mom had it and I decided to take it, but I took the test with some surprising results.
Michael, also known as Sausage Mahoney, welcome into Forever Forward, man.
Thanks for having me. I'll be honest, I'm equally excited as I am nervous right now.
It's all right. No matter how many episodes I film, every time I hit record, I get very nervous. So I get you. You're not alone. I'm nervous too. Where are you joining us from, man?
Ohio, technically Southern Ohio. I'm not going to tell you, the street, and I'm
not
going
gonna
to tell you
dox
my
yourself.
address, but yeah, Ohio.
Yeah. Cool, man. It's funny. I grew up in the Midwest. I don't know if a lot of listeners know this. I'm based in New York City right now, but I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay. So I feel like I share that with you in some sense. Have you been in Ohio your whole life in the Midwest or no?
Pretty much, except for like 8 or 9 months that I lived in Colorado, a small little suburb of Denver called Roxborough Park.
Well, look, if we've got any viewers and listeners from Roxborough Park, welcome in also to Forever Forward. Well, look, man, I first came across your stuff on YouTube. I know you recently started a channel, and maybe we can start there. I think we share that. We're both kind of small YouTubers trying to make it here. So what inspired you to start YouTube, and how's it been so far?
So I woke up one morning. It was March 26th, actually.
Okay.
I made a cup of coffee. I turned on YouTube and I saw a video titled "You Should Be a YouTuber" by someone called Neat on the Rocks. I don't know all their content. I should go watch it.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, I just clicked play, sipping my coffee, and before the video was even halfway finished, I'm looking up how do you start a YouTube channel, and that's pretty much it.
Are you serious, man? That's actually great. Because I think a lot of people that do want to start, let's say like anything, or let's just say a YouTube channel, they feel like it needs to be this like major revelation. For you, it seems like it was not that.
Not really. I needed to do something with my time. I just quit my job like 3 months prior, and I was going to the gym, but besides that, it's like I'm not doing anything. If I'm going to play video games, I might as well record it. And so just to get my feet wet, my first video, I loaded up some video game. I just had the skybox in the background, and I'm talking on if I can get it out, on the microphone for this headset. It was terrible quality. But since then, I've learned how to use OBS. I've learned how to edit in DaVinci Resolve. This is my second microphone that I bought because the first one was some cheap piece of garbage from Walmart. But it's been a journey.
You're coming through clear as day. And I will say, as somebody who's been watching your content, like with every upload, it's gotten a little bit better. And I feel like that's kind of the goal. Like with each upload, you improve on like one or two things.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying. And my most recent video, I've learned that, most of my videos have just been demos, which I thought was a good way to get started, figure out how to do this. But as I've played, I've realized that, anybody can go play a demo. So why make a video about something that anybody could go do? So my next video to come out, it's going to be a game review, and I went hard on my thumbnail game because I needed to get better on that. And so far, it's probably my best video that at least I'm the most proud of that one. We'll see how the
algorithm thinks, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool, man. So you make primarily gaming content, right? But you also make other content. I feel like you have other variety in there.
Correct. For the gaming, it's mostly indie games. It's a little bit of Destiny 2. As for the indie games, like I remember looking up videos about a game that I bought on Steam, but there would be no videos about it.
There you go.
So that was kind of, my influence, but I'm trying to branch out, experiment a little bit. I've got some videos reviewing movies. I really like to go see movies, and I figured why not?
Yeah. It's funny. I went to the movie theater for the first time in years the other day. Well, about a month ago. I saw Inside Out 2 with my girlfriend.
Okay.
I have to tell you, man, I forgot how great it is to go to the movies. Like,
I love it.
I love it. And my younger brother will go to the movies by himself. I thought that was weird. And then I went the other week and I was like, wait a second, I could see myself doing this.
It hits different and not in a bad way.
No, it doesn't hit in a lonely way. It hits in like a very comforting way.
Yeah.
No, for sure, man. Well, look, I'm grateful I came across your content. Obviously, I'm a subscriber. He's Sausage Mahoney on YouTube, everybody. You should go check out his stuff. But you So you mentioned earlier, you're like, look, I had just quit my job. Maybe that's a point that we can talk about. So like, why did you quit your job? And what's the backstory there?
Basically, I helped get a startup company off the ground. It was the owner, and then it was me. At least in the beginning, he ended up, hiring some more people, and he grew. I did take a leave of absence for 3 months because I was trying to finish school, and that didn't work out. So, we stayed on good terms, and I went back. But I started to bump heads with the owner. And then just talking through the grapevine and through some of the people we worked with, I realized I was being underpaid by $2 an hour compared to similar people in my field. But I was also an operations manager, which I feel like that title was flexed when needed. I didn't feel like I was a manager all the time, just in certain scenarios. The final nail for me was that the owner of this company went on vacation for like a week and a half in Europe, and I was in charge of, running the ship. One of our employees at the time injured himself, so I had to pick up his slack while we also just hired a new person, and I'm training her remotely. She's in the office and I'm out in the field doing stuff. And I thought, if I'm being underpaid by $2, not to mention I take on all these managerial tasks, I kind of want not only the $2, but also more because I'm doing more.
100%.
And he didn't like that. And in fact, he even told me that I didn't know how to, the girl that I was training, he told me I didn't know how to do her job. And I'm thinking to myself, I trained her while you were gone. Don't tell me I don't know how to do that. So that was the final nail in the coffin. I just, that's it. I'm done. I quit. I'm out. I don't have anything lined up, but I'm not going to be undervalued.
Well, look, I think there's a few questions I have on that. And you raise a very interesting point. Look, even in salaried positions, I feel like this, compensation is such like an odd topic. Nobody talks about it, right? And it's like so taboo to bring up what you make. But I do feel like in any job, it's important to know where you stand. I think maybe I'm taking a cynical view on this, but it's better for employers to, reinforce the fact that you shouldn't talk about your comp, because then you'll know, in your case, if you're underpaid. And maybe it's done on purpose. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But it seems like you knowing that you are making less actually in the end helped you get out of that bad situation.
Yeah. When I first met the guy, he seemed like a very nice, genuine dude. And, maybe he still is.
Yeah.
But that whole situation just, it soured me. And some people, they'll say, well, he's the business owner, so he's taking business risk. That's a very fair point. However, anybody that knew this guy and knew the company and knew the success knew that there wasn't that much risk, because it's a very unique idea and he was growing exponentially.
Right. And it seems like he was growing with major support from you.
Correct. I was his first guy. When he hired me, everything that I was doing, he didn't have to do. So now he could go do other stuff. So basically, he essentially doubled his workforce right there.
And in fact, maybe it wasn't even a 1 + 1 = 2. It was like a 1 + 1 = 3, because you're doing all this work and he's able to now go do other things that make the business even more valuable than if it was just him plus another version of him. But look, has this soured your idea of of working or of having a boss, or, how do you move forwards after an experience like that?
That is a good question. Unfortunately, most people have a boss, whether it's somebody else or themselves, or, be it. Most people have a boss, and you can't really get out of that. I'm not opposed to working because, you do need to bring in money and all that good stuff. If you can be self-employed, I think that's a good idea. That there's just a lot of risk with that. So it's either, take the risk of being self-employed or take the risk of having, excuse my language, a really shitty boss.
Right.
Some people are lucky to have a great boss, and I'm happy for them, but that's just something you can't avoid.
100%. And I do feel like it's not like you just decide to be self-employed and then you make all this money. Like, it's a grind, and it can fail and it can be terrible. Have you tried any entrepreneurial stuff, or no, not yet?
To a degree. When everything shut down, back in 2020, previous to that, I was an assistant teacher in some charter schools for kids with mostly autism. But when everything shut down, I left that. Again, very bad experience, which I won't get into all that. But So I left that. I was unemployed for a little less than a year.
Okay.
And then my friend asked if I wanted a job, and he was an audio-visual technician. He installed TVs, speakers, that sort of thing. And there was a new high school being built, and he said, I need help installing speakers in this high school. I can't do it by myself. So technically I was self-employed, but nothing crazy. You know, I had some business cards, but it didn't really go anywhere.
Right. No, and you bring up the fact that you had spent time as an assistant teacher and you work with individuals on the autism spectrum. So I want to hear a little bit more about that, because I think I want to hear about it for a few reasons. But I find myself relating to some individuals on the spectrum, and I think it's because I believe they're very authentic and they speak very directly. But so what was your experience like working with those kids? Was it positive? Was it difficult? What was that like?
Working with the kids, for the most part, was a positive experience. Most of the kids I worked with were fantastic. The job I had before COVID, when everything shut down, I worked in a charter school for kids with behavior issues. Some of them, we were able to change their behavior, I guess
you're
could
able
say.
to probably help them integrate into, maybe something that would be more socially acceptable.
Correct. Ultimately, that was the goal. Some kids were able to achieve that. Other kids, we just knew that it was best to keep them in this charter school.
Yeah. Right.
Unfortunately, the school that I was at, the administration weren't truthful about things. A lot of the teachers were, it was like being back in high school. I don't know if people know that, but and I'm sure a lot of jobs are like this, but you would think as a teacher, you don't play that sort of stuff.
It's,
no.
Like cliquish and that type of thing.
Correct. I had other coworkers throwing me under the bus for things, and the director of the school would come talk to me, and he's like, I kind of figured your story was the case, but I needed to get both sides of the story here. Him and I were on pretty good terms, but unfortunately that school, the experiences I had, I'll be honest, I was glad for shutdown. I struggled working there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the most interesting things that you've brought up, maybe one of the most interesting points that a guest has ever wanted to discuss, was the fact that, look, you not only have worked with individuals on the spectrum, but you have said yourself that you think you might be on it as well. What makes you think that? And I also want to praise you, because I think a lot of people say that in jest. Like, oh, I have autism, or I have ADHD, or who knows? But it seems like you've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and you're very rational in your approach. So what makes you feel that way?
I do want to preface this by saying I am not diagnosed. I've not been screened. I don't mean to self-diagnose. These are just suspicions that I have. About 5 or 10 years ago, my mother was diagnosed with what was formerly called Asperger's. And then 15 or 20 years ago, my father was diagnosed with ADD, which now I think is just called ADHD. But there's some overlap between ADHD and autism. And I remember, I don't know if it was before my mother was diagnosed or if it was after, but I ended up finding a test online. And again, I don't know if it was just for fun or if it was because my mom had it and I decided to take it, but I took the test with some surprising results.
Right.
And since then, I've gone back and I've retaken the test, and I found more tests that I've taken. And each time it's like, well, I don't feel this way. Right. But the test scores are indicating that, buddy, you should probably go talk to somebody.
Right.
And since then, there's just more and more things. I'll read something. I'll talk to somebody. I'm like, hold it. That sounds like me. That sounds like me too. And so, I would like to go get screened. And if I don't have autism, no harm, no foul.
Right.
It's self-discovery, essentially. I'm 32.
You got to figure out who you are, right? You got to figure out what's going on.
Correct.
So what are some of the things, when you say like, oh, there are certain things that lead me to believe that, like what are a few of the things that make you think, hey, there might be something going on here?
So for a lot of people on the spectrum, there's sensory things. For me, and again, I don't know if this is a thing or not, but I don't like feeling things on the bottom of my feet. If I'm walking outside and I'm barefoot, that's one thing. But if I'm in my kitchen, the smallest crumb feels like a rock. And so I either have to wear socks constantly or I sweep the floor every single day. And I just can't do that. With food, I can't eat fruit. bananas and occasionally apples, but like if you give me an orange or a strawberry, I have to muscle it down because the texture, I just can't do it. Smoothies are fine. The flavor and the taste, that's fine. But the texture of fruit in my mouth, I can't handle it.
Yeah. Right.
Some loud noises, and it isn't necessarily loud noises, but from what somebody told me, it's certain decibels and certain frequencies.
Interesting.
So, I can go to a concert and I'm fine, but if there's like loud conversations in like an enclosed room, I'm like, I can only hang out for like 15 minutes and I got to leave. My ears hurt. I just can't do it.
It's so interesting that you say all this, right? And it's like, I do feel like at times I feel similar sensations, but they're not to the extent and the frequency that feels like you feel them. Because I think what you've described is like some people feel that in bits and pieces, but it feels like you've lived with this for a long time to the point where you're like, this is a part of my life.
Yeah. And because of that, to me, this is my reality, and not like to get all meta or anything, you know.
Okay, yeah.
This is the way that I just perceive things. So therefore, like I've done it for 32 years. In a way, I'm just kind of used to it.
Right. And it doesn't feel like this admission to yourself, again, you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor, whether you have it or not, it doesn't feel like this admission to yourself is any way of you saying like, I'm less than, or this is defeat. You're just like, this is who I am. Like, how do you reckon with that in your mind that you may be somebody that does have some form of that? Again,
whether I do or not, honestly, it just doesn't matter to me, you know. Yeah. It's like with anybody else, you know, there are some people that you love, some people that you just can't stand, whether this is it or not. Like I'm just a person. It doesn't matter. I don't care about other people's opinions. Like this is the way I perceive things and the way I feel things and I think and all that good stuff.
I love that,
you know,
man. And look, me. You know, because I love that. And look, at the end of the day, like that's what this podcast is all about. At the end of the day, fundamentally, what I want to do is help to profile individuals that are just authentically themselves. They're like, look, this is me and this is my life. And I'm just owning that. Have you always been like this? Or is this something that you've kind of had to come to, this acceptance of like, look, this is just me?
I think I've always kind of been, you know, this is just me.
Yeah.
In my late teens, early 20s, I think I went through like a little phase where and you know, a lot of people at that age and just growing up in general, they experiment with things and they want to discover and they might try to fit into a crowd. I never really felt that way until my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
And you know, I did try the whole like, oh, this is kind of popular, so I'm going to stick my foot in and see what it's like. But
I think we all have.
It's like, yeah,
you know,
it's just like, this is me. Take it or leave it.
Absolutely, man. And look, this is kind of off script, but as far as like, this is me, you know, look, you're on YouTube and you're putting yourself out there, right? Being on YouTube is a very vulnerable place. How has the reception been from your audience and friends and family? You know, are they accepting this new hobby of yours? Have you had any haters? What's it generally been like?
Mostly positive.
Yeah.
Friends and family, you know, they support me. I've had a couple haters, but it wasn't even on YouTube. I don't know these people. They're just like random people elsewhere that I was talking to. Like I remember when I first started YouTube, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I put up a short of me deadlifting, and I think I also leg press, maybe, I don't remember. And then a short of me building a little cat condo for my two cats. And I was just asking for advice, like, hey, like, what should I do? How do I grow? Like, I'm learning. And some guy was like, you have a video of you lifting weights and another video of you building a cat condo. Your stuff sucks. Like, you're an idiot. And I'm thinking, okay, like, cool. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. It's funny you say that too, because like so many people on YouTube, and look, maybe this is the correct advice, but everybody says you need to make one thing. You need to have a niche. You need to do this. It's like everybody wants to put me and you in a box, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like do what you want, right? It's like if you want to post those videos, then you want to post videos of you deadlifting, like it's your own life.
Yeah. I do think that, you know, to a degree you should stay in a niche of some sort. Because, you know, if you start branching out too many times and going too far, I think people will lose interest. But, you know, if I did just video games, how many people also do just video games?
Right.
That's why I've kind of dabbled in the movie reviews, because I'm thinking I like video games and movies, and they're both a form of entertainment. Why not?
100%, man. And look, so I noticed, for those watching on YouTube, you're wearing a Rogue Fitness shirt, right? So obviously I know you're a fitness guy. How big of a role does fitness play in your life? You said you posted a video of you deadlifting or leg pressing. Like, is that something that you consider a core part of your daily life?
I want to say that is a core part of my daily life. Unfortunately, life happens, and
you and me both.
I'll have to just like stop going for whatever reason. Like I'm currently in that boat right now where I haven't been in like 3 months, but when I do go, I was waking up at 3:00 in the morning, throwing down a pre-workout, and it's like,
throwing
okay,
down one of these, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, time to go do biceps. All right, it's time to go do back, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy it. I just, life happens, and I haven't been able to go in the past 3 months or so.
Yeah, man, I get it. I'm in the same boat. So, I just actually moved in with my girlfriend, which is wonderful. We were having a blast.
But we've been in this. By the way.
Thanks for saying that, man. We've been in this moving phase for like a month, and it's totally uprooted my whole life. Like, I thought that this was going to be a quick, like, 1 week thing. The movers come, they help you, and then you're done. It's so not like that. It has changed so much for me. So I'm also in that phase where I used to be like, have a routine where I get up, I go to the gym. And some people listening might be like, dude, you can still do that and also move. So maybe I'm being soft, but it's like, I agree with you. There are just phases where things get out of whack. And then you got to get back in the routine.
And honestly, like, yeah, you can still go, but when your routine is wake up at 5 a.m., get to the gym at 6, you don't want to go at 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
you're
right.
not used to it.
You're totally right. You said you were waking up at 3 in the morning, huh?
Occasionally. It was right after I quit my job. My sleep schedule is all out of whack, and I just figured I want to get back into lifting. I'm awake. Let's just go.
Yeah, man. You're like, if I'm up, let's just do something with the time. Yeah. So look, it feels to me like you are in like a pretty interesting, unique phase right now. And I could imagine that in your shoes, there might be like some anxiety or uncertainty around that. Do you feel that, or no? You're okay, just living in the moment and taking this where it needs to go?
I'm trying to live in the moment and just accept it as it is. But I would be lying if I said there was no anxiety, there's no stress. There are bills to pay. I've got rent, I've got car insurance, all that good stuff. There are bills to pay. I would like to find a job. I'm hoping to restart classes in the fall, which should be just a couple weeks, because I never did finish my my bachelor's.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I try to plan ahead, but you never know what's going to happen. So
seriously,
just try to go with the flow, do your best, and whatever happens, just accept
And look,
it.
In practice, sometimes that's easier said than done, right? But even like me with the Forever Forward thing, it's like, I wish I could control everything here, but I can't. And YouTube has taught me that. YouTube is like, you throw that video up there and who knows what's going to happen. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah. There's plenty of videos where, I record and I think, okay, that's fine. And then I'll go rewatch it later. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Why are people watching this?
Or how about, I'll do you one more. I'll do you one better, where you do it and you spend all this time on it. You make a great or what you think is a great thumbnail. And then you put it up there and nothing, crickets. And you're like, what the heck? Like, I thought I had controlled all the controllables. And it's like, nope.
Been there for sure. And that's what I'm a little worried about with my game review that's going to come out, on Monday or Tuesday or whenever it is.
Are you at liberty to drop what game it is, or you want to keep that?
Sure. It's a game called The Pathless. I was streaming it on Twitch. It's kind of like Legend of Zelda, maybe a little bit of Shadow of the Colossus.
Nice.
There's not a lot of combat. It's all about exploration and storytelling. But I had a really good time. The art in it was fantastic. And I just figured, let's make a game review. I'll spoil it right now. I gave it, what was it? I think I gave it like an 8 out of 10 in my
I feel like that's high.
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest setback was the price tag of the game. It was $40. Like, regular price is $40, but I only got 12 hours of gameplay out of it. So I'm like, $40 for 12 hours? That seems like a lot, but I did get it on sale for 10, so.
Oh, well, okay, so that's good. But like, I would, pair that with like Elden Ring on a Steam sale, right? You can get 400 hours out of that, versus. And is this an indie game or no? This is from a larger studio.
I believe it's an indie game. I think they have a couple other titles under their belt, but I do believe it's an indie an indie studio.
Cool. Because I know that you've profiled several indie games on your channel. And what I think is really cool is some of these devs are in your comment section. Like, hey, thanks for checking this out, man. That must feel cool, huh?
There's a game I've played recently called Goblin Auto Club Manager. It's just like a little arcade racing game. I reached out to the developer. They said, "Here's a Steam key. Thanks for making a video." And I remember somebody commented, "How does this guy with triple digit subscribers get free Steam keys?" I'm like, "Brother, I just reached out and
You're like, because I asked."
And not all of them will respond, but some of them, they're like, "Yeah, I would love to. Thank you very much."
Seriously, that's actually a good lesson I think that I've learned recently in trying to get guests and just, build this podcast. Like, I think generally people want to help, but you can't get the help unless you make some semblance of an effort.
Correct. And you're not always going to get the help either. And if you don't get it, don't dwell on it. But, unless you can't get an answer unless you ask.
Well, look, I think maybe one interesting area as we start to close is video games are clearly a pretty sizable part of your life. I mean, you're on YouTube making content out of it. And I haven't talked about it on this channel, but video games are a massive part of mine as well. That's actually how I found your channel in the first place.
Okay.
So could you just talk about, like, maybe your love of video games? Where does it come from? How long have you been playing video games for? And then, like, what are a couple of your favorite games of all time? I'm curious.
Oh, man. Favorite games of all time. We'll start there. For a long time, I would say my favorite series was The Legend of Zelda. I don't know if I'd have an actual favorite game in the series. Maybe Wind Waker, just because I like the art and the art, story, music.
And the art style of that game has aged so beautifully over time.
Yes, even just the regular GameCube version. I mean, it's a little darker and a little grainier, but still, even then, it holds up. In high school, I was a massive World of Warcraft fan. I gave up on that like 10 years ago or whatever. Yeah. Fallout New Vegas, that's probably the one game I've beat the most.
Dude, have you ever listened to the Fallout New? I don't know if you ever listened to like Fallout New Vegas radio on YouTube. It is like you got to look it up. Like, they have a bunch of channels. They just live stream Fallout New Vegas songs with like a little bit of like a crackling in them. I listen to it when I edit. Oh man, it's so good. But anyways, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. I actually have some of those New Vegas songs on my Spotify. So I'll go from from Snoop Dogg to Metallica to like Jingle Jangle. I think the first game I ever played was probably The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. And, being that young, I also had a babysitter. I had a 64, but, the babysitter, they had a PlayStation 1. So I'd go over there and me and her kids would play like Rampage, like 4-player Rampage or maybe Gauntlet. I've been mostly a Nintendo kid growing up. I did have a 360. So, I played Halo 3, had a PlayStation 2 for, Ratchet and Clank. And then eventually I got a PC. But no, it's mostly Nintendo games.
Yeah, man. And it feels to me like video games have sort of been ubiquitous like your whole life. For what it's worth, for the listeners, I'd love to name a few of my favorites if anybody can relate. So, all right. So growing up, my first game that I ever remember playing was Super Mario 64. I had a Nintendo.
Classic.
I remember, it's one of my earliest memories. I remember getting a Nintendo 64 for Christmas. Actually, to circle back to the very beginning, it was in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I got the Nintendo 64. I remember I got Super Mario 64 and I think I got like Mario Tennis. There's a Mario Tennis game on the 64, I want to say. So I got that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And then as I grew up, I was always an Xbox kid. So I had an original Xbox, played a bunch there. My favorite series of all time is Gears of War.
Okay.
So I played Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. That's definitely my favorite series. And I think they're releasing a new one called Gears of War E-Day that I saw announced. And that's going to be incredible. But my all-time favorite video game is old school RuneScape. I played that still play for my whole life. And like, I was always nervous to talk about it with people because I feel like people, you said you played World of Warcraft. Like, people label you, right, if they find out you play that. But, RuneScape has been so ubiquitous my whole life. It's like my comfort game.
I never got into RuneScape. I've always heard that there was, you were either a RuneScape kid or you're a Warcraft kid.
Yeah, I was the RuneScape. I never played Warcraft, so I was on the RuneScape side.
I was lucky enough to afford a $15 a month subscription. Don't ask me how, because I don't know how, but somehow I did.
Wonderful, man. Well, look, I can't thank you enough. And you so embody exactly what this podcast is all about. Just normal people out there in the world finding their way and, doing a righteous job at it. So I can't thank you enough, Michael, for jumping on. And if you'd like a round two and the listeners want it, maybe we could do that.
It's my pleasure being here. I don't feel so nervous about it now that we're actually in it, but I'm glad I'm here. And I would love to be back in 6 months, a year, 5 years, whenever it is. If the people want it, I would love to be back.